before.
The big shocker in this trailer, of course, the reappearance of Palpatine. What can you tell us about this? How long was this in the cards? Was this sort of in the blueprint from Episode 7?
This has been in the blueprint for a long time. Yeah, we had not landed on exactly how we might do that, but yes, it's always
to be in Episode 9.
Yeah.
Was Palpatine's return always the plan for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, or is this more of a break the glass in case of an emergency type situation? Well, we've got some information and we've got some speculation. Let's make a YouTube video, people.
We do it for the fans.
This video was produced by Al Schuler, one of our executive producers via Patreon. All right, so let's get into this, guys. Al and I were at Celebration. We remember when the trailer released, when you heard the Palpatine laugh, everyone was freaking out. We were pretty positive on it. And we even talked about then. We were like, wow, this really feels like Disney sort of really swinging for the fences, doing something real crazy by bringing Palpatine back. This is probably an attempt to win fans back. And then we heard it come out that Kathleen Kennedy had actually said that it was indeed their plan from the start to have Palpatine in Episode 9. And Al and I both were like, I don't know about that one. But as I said, we uncovered some evidence that might actually support this idea. So let's get to the evidence. Number one, and even though we've talked about this before, I've got to talk about the contingency yet again. The First Order is the big bad when we start with The Force Awakens. They are the Imperial-like organization coming from the depths of darkness, surprising everyone, and all of a sudden, yeah, they're taking over the galaxy. And the First Order comes from this group of commands called the contingency. The contingency was a plan put in place by Palpatine in case he did not survive the Battle of Endor or in case his empire was overthrown. Now, there were a lot of different aspects to the contingency, and a lot of this is tackled heavily in the Aftermath novels, particularly in the last Aftermath novel, but it is basically out there that the contingency leads to the First Order and somehow leads to Snoke and then all of the stuff that happens in the first of the sequel trilogy. And so tying this all to Palpatine, tying the First Order to the contingency on film in Episode 9 was likely always the plan. And we've heard that the making of the First Order is going to be heavily focused on in The Rise of Skywalker. So it makes sense, and you start to see how, yeah, maybe there is some evidence here that Palpatine was always going to be brought into Star Wars Episode 9. But the evidence doesn't stop there. There's actually images within the art books for both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi that hint at Palpatine's connection and possible inclusion in the final chapter of that trilogy. There are scenes of the Falcon underwater flying towards the Death Star's remains on Endor in the art book for The Force Awakens, and in The Last Jedi novelization, the ring that Snoke has a crystal from the caves on Mustafar, or where Vader's castle is, but the gold has this etched symbols of the Dwarti, who were these philosophers, early formers of the Republic that Palpatine not only had statues of, but held in high regard. And in the novelization for The Last Jedi, it's more explicitly spelled out the respect that Snoke has for Palpatine. There are chapters within the Tarkin novel spelling out Palpatine's plan to reforge reality and this weird power that he senses out in the unknown regions and how he doesn't really care about the Empire anymore. He's trying to do something different. There's the campaign from Battlefront 2 where you're literally seeing Palpatine's face still giving orders in the Sentinel droids, and then in the DLC for this, there was this expansion of the story all talking about this Project Resurrection, possibly hinting at the plans that the Emperor had within the contingency to resurrect himself. Basically, Palpatine's shown up quite a bit in ancillary Star Wars storytelling materials, and this includes the end of Star Wars Rebels and the role he plays there in a lot of several novels. So there's been a lot of Palpatine out there, kind of hinting towards maybe Palpatine was in the cards for Lucasfilm and Star Wars Episode 9. Now, something to do with the fact that the Skywalker saga is going to end here, and just the connection between Snoke and the First Order makes me believe that Palps was always going to be a part of Star Wars Episode 9, but maybe not in the flesh. So let me explain this. My running theory right now is that it's going to be explained that Snoke was explicitly under the command of Palpatine, and he was trying to accomplish a number of things, most importantly, destroying Luke Skywalker. So this would explain why Snoke is so hell-bent on destroying Skywalker in both The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and it would explain why Palpatine would feel as though he could come back, or the next stage of his contingent plan would be enacted after Skywalker was defeated. Now, I want to stop here for a second and tell you something else that kind of bugged me about this whole situation. So at Star Wars Celebration, JJ lets it be known that he did talk to George Lucas before working on the script for this film, and he was trying to get George's advice, and he's talking about specifically with bringing Palpatine back. And when I first heard that, I was like, okay, well, Kathy must be lying then, because for Kathy to say that Palpatine was always in the plan, they just hadn't landed on how to do it, and then JJ to say, hey, once I decided to bring Palpatine and I wanted to talk to George, those seemed like conflicting ideas. But it's possible they aren't conflicting ideas. It's possible that Snoke was originally going to be alive, and that in 9, it was going to be revealed that Snoke was trying to bring Palpatine back, but the heroes would then prevent that from happening. But because Ryan decided to kill Snoke, JJ then decided, hey, let's take this to the next level. Let's actually bring Palpatine back. That could actually explain both JJ's comments and Kathy's comments. So from a certain point of view here, it seemed like Lucasfilm was going to bring Palpatine back, at least as a big story element in Star Wars Episode 9, and then perhaps JJ decided, hey, let's actually bring him back in the flesh. So that's one way that it could all work out, but there's actually some more evidence to suggest that bringing him back, actually resurrecting Palpatine, was always a part of the plan. So check this out. Again, from the Aftermath books, there was this character of Gallius Rax who was sort of the contingent. He was the guy Palpatine decided would enact the contingency and start that plan towards creating the First Order and possibly towards resurrecting Palpatine. And there's this scene from within the 3rd novel where he's talking to another character named Tashu, who is an old advisor of Palpatine, and check this out. This will blow your mind. The passage starts, Tashu gumbles down in front of the artifacts, his fingertips dancing along their cases. He mutters to himself, and Rax sees that he's chewed his own lips bloody. Are you ready? He asks Palpatine's old advisor. I am, Tashu says, turning. His cheeks are wet with tears, his teeth slick with red. Palpatine lives on. We will find him again out there in the dark. Everything has arranged itself as our master foretold. All things move towards the grand design. The sacrifices have all been made. Not all of them, Rax thinks. You must be clothed in the remnants of darkness, Rax says. The mantle of the dark side is yours to wear, at least for a time. At least until we could find Palpatine and revivify him, bringing his soul to flesh anew. And holy crap, that's pretty telling stuff. I mean, consider the fact that Chuck Wendig's Aftermath series is the biggest piece of evidence between what happened after the Battle of Endor and where we were at the start of The Force Awakens. He was probably given a lot of information, NDA'd out of his mind, as far as what was going on with the overall plan for Disney, because I tend to believe that there was at least a blueprint for things they wanted to happen in this trilogy. I mean, they had the treatments that George Lucas gave them, they had their own ideas, they likely had the bare bones of an idea. And while I do admit that having different writers and directors do their own thing with it was ultimately a mistake, if you're sitting there thinking they had no plan whatsoever, I think that's just logically incorrect. Like, I don't think that's true. They had some kind of a plan, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest here that yes, Palpatine and Palpatine's return in Star Wars Episode 9 was always a part of the plan. Now, for me personally, I can't decide whether or not they were always going to bring him back, or they were going to bring back the threat of bringing him back and tie Snoke to Palpatine, and that's how he was originally going to come back.
Roll it again.
The big shocker in this trailer, of course, the reappearance of Palpatine. What can you tell us about this? How long was this in the cards? Was this sort of in the blueprint from Episode 7?
This has been in the blueprint for a long time. Yeah, we had not landed on exactly how we might do that, but yes, it's always
To be in Episode 9.
Yeah.
Either way, it really looks like when Kathy was saying that, she was not lying, that Palpatine was always a part of the plan. So I'm really interested. What do you guys think about this? What do you think about some of the evidence Al Schuler and myself have found and presented to you here? Are you buying it? Do you think Palps was always the plan? Do you forgive Palpatine coming back more, or did you always think it was dope? Either way, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And before we get out of here, I again want to say that this video was produced by Al Schuler via Patreon. The Patreons help help us out so much. It's so cool working with these people, and the cushion that all Patreons at every single level provide to us is invaluable. YouTube's really weird. Ad revenue here is really weird. The cushion we have from the Patreons allow us to continue making content like this. So if you're looking for a way to support the channel, you want to get some cool behind the scenes information, consider checking out the Patreon today. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.